Alrighty, welcome to the practice set for Saxon Math Course 3, Lesson 95. Now this was the lesson on the slant heights of pyramids and cones. There are 4 examples in our practice set, A, B, C, and D. We're going to get started with A. Now A asked, what is the difference between the height of a cone and its slant height? Well, as I've written out here, the height of a cone is perpendicular to its base and extends from the apex to the base through the center of the shape. That means that if we're drawing out a pyramid here, the height would go straight down to the bottom. The slant height would go along the edge. The slant height goes along the edge from the apex to the bottom edge of the base. Along the side, it's like you're sliding down the cone or the pyramid. If you have a melting ice cream cone and ice cream is dripping down the side of the cone, it's going to go along the slant height. If you had a drumstick and you had one of those fudge-filled ones, the fudge core in the center of the drumstick, that's the height of the cone. Going through the center is the height. Going along the side is the slant height. Through the center is the height, and along the side is the slant height. Now, part B asked, what's true about the slant height versus the height? Is it always shorter, always longer, or always the same as the height? Well, we learned that we can find the slant height by using the Pythagorean theorem. If we're using the Pythagorean theorem for the slant height, and the slant height is always c, then the slant height always will be longer than the height, because you're going to have to add half of that base squared to it. Unless the base didn't exist, it would never be the same, and it could never be smaller, because they're going to the base and the slant height has to travel further. It's that hypotenuse of that right triangle. It's always going to be longer. Practice set question C gives us this triangle here. It says this is a cross section of a pyramid. It asks you to find the slant height. Well, we are given a height of 8 and a base of 8, but remember that we have to take half of that base value. So we're going to have a height of 8 and a base value of 4 that's going into our Pythagorean theorem. 4 times 4 is 16. 8 times 8 is 64. That's going to give us, when we add it, 80. To find c, we need to take the square root of both sides, giving us the square root of 80 equals c. Now, there are 2 ways we could go with this. If we're working to get a perfectly correct answer without any estimation, we would say 80. The easiest one I can see is it's divisible by 4 and 20, which is then 4 and 5. Notice we have 4 and 4, so it is root 16 times root 5, or 4 root 5. If, however, you are able to estimate, 80 is close to 81, which means that this is going to be about 9. If you want an exact answer, this would be exact. If you're able to estimate and you're really close to another perfect square, just estimate to the perfect square. But only do that when it's asking you to estimate. Don't estimate when it wants an exact answer. Now, this came from a cone, but this is the cross section of the cone. You can imagine if we cut an ice cream cone in half, it would look like this. Now, we're told that the diameter is 4, which means from the center to the outside, the radius is 2. So 2 squared is 4. 6 is our height, so 6 squared is 36. This will give us 40. We take the square root of both sides, and we'd have 40, which is 4 and 10. Now, 10 is just 2 and 5. 2 and 5 are not perfect squares. There's no other factors of 10. So we're going to say that the square root of 40 equals the square root of 4 times the square root of 10, or 2 root 10. and that would be practice set D. I hope that after watching this practice set video, you're getting a better understanding of how we're solving these problems. If you have any questions, I'm thinking about starting up a live streamed tutoring session once a week. I'm going to be posting a question on our class Google Classroom asking what times you are all available to see when that should be. It's probably going to be once or twice a week, and most likely later in the day, afternoon. Alright, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Do your homework, watch the starred problems video, and stay safe and wash your hands.